Hi, and welcome back to Aggressively Average, a series where I do things aggressively averagely. Recently, I have been watching a lot of Natalie Sidesurf and her hyper-realistic cakes. Don't worry, I'm not going to attempt a hyper-realistic cake because anything I could actually achieve is probably going to be quite boring, and anything I try and do that's not boring is just not even going to be average. So, instead, in the honor of Halloween coming up, I have decided to make a ghost cake, and I'm going to try and sculpt it to look like a 3D ghost. For the cake itself, I'm going to be making a funfetti cake because I think it's probably going to have a bit more structure to be able to carve. I'm going to be following Sally's baking addiction. Let's get to it. Preheat oven to 180. I have absolutely no idea how much cake this recipe is going to produce, so I don't know the size my ghost is going to be. So we'll find out, I guess, at the end. So I need to whisk together flour. This says cake flour. I don't have cake flour. What flour do I have? I have this low-fo pantry flour, which I don't know what low food map means, but I really like these containers, and this was the only flour that came in this reusable container. I'm gonna assume it's just flour. Food map friendly. What is a food map? I've never heard of it, so I'm just gonna assume it's regular flour. I do also have this basic as self-raising flour, which I might use. Baking powder, baking soda, salt. Interesting fact about my salt. We get these salt and pepper shakers, and when they are empty, we refill them because reduce, reuse, recycle. Accidentally filled the salt with the one that says pepper. So the recipe is in cups, and what makes me really laugh is, I've said this before in my croquembouche video, I highly doubt that cups can be that specific because it just can't be. It doesn't seem like a science to me. So I either need 3 3/4 cups of flour or 443 grams. How can you be so specific that you need 443 grams? Not 42, not 444, but in 3 3/4 cups of flour. That's a lot less specific. Let's mix these things together. I am gonna use a sieve because professional. Okay, now we've got the flour mixture together. I've got to now whisk the butter and the sugar. Just realizing the butter should have been left out at room temperature, and it hasn't been, so I'm gonna microwave it. Yeah, YOLO. 1 1/4 cups of unsalted butter, or 282 grams. Why so specific in the grams when you know the cups that have way more leeway for error? Anyway, so 282. This whole thing is 250. Oh crap. I'm just gonna use this. We're gonna be 30 grams short on butter. Oh well. I'm assuming granulated and caster sugar are gonna do the same thing. It does say to use a stand mixer with a paddle attachment, but I am not bougie and I don't have enough money for that, so I have this, and that's going to have to do. I would say that's pretty creamy. So now I've got to add in 4 eggs and 2 egg whites, which is a lot of egg. I think this might make quite a bit of cake. It does say at room temperature, and these are straight out of the fridge, and they are cold. It can't make that much of a difference. Like, this isn't a professional cake. Some vanilla. And yes, I still use imitation vanilla despite knowing what's in it because it is cheaper. I also need buttermilk, but I don't have buttermilk. Not even 100% sure what buttermilk is, but I did learn once, I think it was from Jamie Oliver, he said that if you use 1 cup of milk to like 1 tablespoon of white vinegar. Oh, I should Google these. I'm not gonna, fuck it. Chuck some vinegar into some milk and you should get buttermilk. So I have my 1 1/2 cups of milk in here, and I'm just gonna add in some white vinegar. That was an entirely random amount. I just took this to the top. So I'm gonna let that sit for 5 minutes. Add the dry ingredients and buttermilk in 3 additions. Okay? So that was about a half, more than a third. It just said 3 additions. It didn't say 3 equal additions. All right, I think we're all mixed. Do we think this is velvety and thick? I don't know, something about it doesn't feel quite right, but I think I've done everything as the recipe says. So I'm just going to power through. Sprinkles that I've had in my cupboard for so long. Best before September 2023. Only slightly out of date. Look at that. That's fun. That is funfetti. Now we just have to pour the cake into the pan. So I've got different size pans because I figure to get that kind of ghost shape, different size pans would help. Like these two for the bottom, and then this one for like the body, and then this one to be on the head. I have just realized that the different size pans do mean it's going to cook at different times, so I've got to be really on top of the cooking. So they're all in their different size tins, so I'm just going to pat them down to let the air bubbles out and have them level off. I'm just going to put them in for 20 minutes initially. I know you're not supposed to open the oven as they're cooking because they'll sink, but they're going to cook at different times and I don't know what, so whatever. Whilst my lovely cakes are cooling, I am going to make the buttercream. So for this, I need 340 grams of softened butter. I have here 500, so I'll just cut that to size. And if you're sat there thinking, Frida, you have so much butter, why didn't you use some of this when you didn't have enough for the cake itself? To that, I say, you're right, and I probably should have, but didn't think it through. Just going to jump in here with the voiceover because I realised here that my microphone had actually turned off and I hadn't noticed. So I just continue making the buttercream. It's a basic American buttercream, so icing, sugar. One thing that did happen was my whisk broke, so all I had in the house to use was an immersion blender. It did an okay job, but not great. Now I'm adding in, I think it was 1/3 of a cup of cream, heavy whipping cream, and then also adding some vanilla for taste, and then using the immersion blender again. It wasn't doing a great job, so I tried to do the rest of it by hand. Look at that elbow grease going into that. It was okay because the whisk and the immersion blender had done most of the work, so I was able to finish it off with whisk. Now it's time for me to assemble the cakes. My plan is to carve the cake, but here I realised that I haven't put the buttercream in between the layers, which is kind of key. So I had to get my buttercream, which was so stiff that I actually had to microwave it in a separate bowl in order to make it spreadable enough to get on the cake. So that's what you can see me doing in the background. I then added my buttercream in between each layer. Then I was in a position where I could actually carve. I'm going for like a kind of pyramid body type shape. I just feel like that's the shape a ghost would be in. I don't know where I got that from, to be honest. I actually also realised that there's huge steps in between the layers that I couldn't really carve away without making the cake quite a bit smaller. So I was using the offcuts to kind of fill in those big steps and just sticking them on there with the other buttercreams. After it's all carved, I am applying a crumb coat, and this is where I start to regret all of my life's decisions. This is a trust the process moment because it is not a case of this is what it's going to look like at all. This is just to seal in all of those crumbs. I'm using my scraping tool, which is the best cake decorating tool you can get. Mine was like $2 off of the internet. I'm just really rough shape. Then I put that in the fridge for 30 minutes. This is it coming out of the fridge 30 minutes later when it's nice and chilled. And then this is the part that's actually really important, what people are going to see. So I'm just adding a ton of buttercream to it to try and cover up all of the cake. And guys, let me tell you, there were some parts of this cake where it did not matter how much buttercream I was putting on. For some reason, some parts of this cake would just not allow themselves to be covered in buttercream. You can see it just kept going. So I just gave up on those bits in the end, and it was all too hard. It was so difficult. I then realised that I actually needed to make the little arms, and I've completely forgotten about that. So I went with like a cake pop technique where I took some of the excess crumbs and I mixed them up with some frosting, and I just kind of mashed them all together to form some spheres. I then put those in the fridge to chill. And then I really did my best to refine the shape of this cake, I was doing some kind of vertical motions to try and smooth it all out. I was trying to get a round top to it too, like the top of a head, but I realized that I had absolutely no idea how to do that, so I was just playing about with everything. I used a spoon, I used a knife, and I felt like everything I did just made it worse, and in the end I kind of gave up and just accepted that what we had was the best we were going to get. I then tried to smooth the cake out with some kitchen roll, which kind of worked, but the kitchen roll then left its own pattern imprinted on there, so I tried to use greaseproof paper. That didn't work at all, so I just accepted that what we had is what we've got. So I cleaned up the cake board and then added in the little arms. I put more frosting on them and added them in with cocktail sticks. I think each arm took 2 cocktail sticks to really be secure on there. Smoothed out the frosting on the arms, and then it was time for it to go back into the fridge for 30 minutes to chill again. How I'm going to make the eyes and the mouth, my plan is to take some chocolate, put it in a little bag, melt it, just pipe it into a brown sheet so they peel off and just stick them on the cake. I do know that if you wanted this to be properly good, you would temper your chocolate so you can get it thin and crispy and all that stuff, but I'm not gonna do that because it just feels like a lot of work. I've never tempered chocolate before. I've never made a cake that doesn't look like a cake before, and it does look like a ghost. I think it's so cute. I get that you might think it's looking terrible, but I'm really proud of it so far. Anywho, I digress. Let's make some eyes and some mouth. So I have my bag of melted chocolate. I'm just gonna snip off the end. I've also realized I was just piping this out with no thought as to how big the cake is. I decided that these were just too big, what I had done here, and so I made these cute little ones. I decided I want a cute little ghost, so I made cute little eyes and mouth, and I just put that in the fridge. So now it's time to put them on him, I think. I'm gonna be really honest with you guys. I know that this thing is ugly, but I kind of love it. It's so cute. It's actually better than my expectations. Don't forget, this is aggressively average. I'm not a baker. I can't do anything well. That's how this channel was born. This is the back. The back doesn't look as good, but from the front, I think the arms are cute. Let's put his little eyes on. My hope is that I can just stick them on, but if I need to melt a bit of chocolate to use as glue, I'll do that. The cute little face. Make it look, oh, so easy. I'm like nervous. Yeah, I'm gonna melt a little bit of chocolate to use as edible glue. Just melted some chocolate. This might be too much. Yeah, it's too much. Oh no, it's melting the actual thing itself. Oh shit, oh shit, oh. Oh no. Oh no. We can save you, we can save you. Oh no, it's okay. It's okay, it's a ghost. It's part of its charm. Oh my God. Look at this mess, I'm making such a mess. But it's a ghost, you know, it's supposed to. Maybe I just should have let them, like this is melted. I reckon this will just go straight on. Look at it, look at it. If we can get that off. Okay, he's finished. I don't think you're ready for the final result. Ta-da! I don't know what's worse, how bad it looks or how long it took or how hard I genuinely tried. I think this is likely the best I could do. In my head, if I used fondant, it would have been better, but that's not true, is it? The more I look at it, the worse it gets. If you didn't know this was supposed to be a ghost, do you think you would get it to ghost? Hey, I feel like I've exercised a bit of creativity. This is the first character cake I've ever made. Tell me what you think we should call him in the comments. That was aggressively average. Funfetti! Where are the sprinkles? Where did the sprinkles go? Where are the sprinkles? I'm a ghost!